Get out of my house. I don't have a daughter anymore, my father screamed, his voice cracking like a whip against the thunder, as he shoved me onto the soaking wet porch and slammed the deadbolt, leaving me standing there at 15 with nothing but a soaking wet backpack and a heart shattered into a million pieces. Little did he or my sister know that Get Out was about to turn into the biggest mistake of their lives. I'm 30 now, sitting in my home in Seattle, watching the rain hit the window, and every time it storms like this, I can still feel the icy bite of that October night back in 2009. Here's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't just hurt, it leaves a coldness in your bones that never quite goes away. I was 15, a straight-A student, probably the quietest kid in my high school class, but my sister, Chloe, was the exact opposite. She was 19, a college dropout, and a master of making everyone believe she was a saint while she was actually draining our father's savings. My dad, Raymond, was a man of few words, and since my mom died, he'd turned Chloe into his golden child, his pillar, his everything. That Tuesday started like any other, but when I walked through the door after track practice, the air in the living room felt heavy, like a storm was already brewing inside. My father was standing by the fireplace, his face a shade of purple I'd never seen before, clutching a plastic bag filled with white pills and several $100 bills. Chloe was behind him, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, looking like the picture of a devastated sister. "Explain this, Sherry," my father roared, throwing the bag at my feet. I looked down, my mind racing, because I had never seen those pills in my life. "I found them under your mattress, Sherry," Chloe sobbed, her voice high and trembling. "I tried to hide it for you, I really did, but I saw you taking money from Dad's coat last night and I couldn't let you destroy yourself anymore." I swear, for a second, I forgot how to breathe. I looked at Chloe, and just for a fleeting moment, her mask slipped. Behind those fake tears, her eyes were cold, calculating, and victorious. She'd stolen the money, she'd bought the pills, and she'd planted them in my room to cover the fact that she'd been stealing thousands from Dad's business account. "Dad, I didn't do this, I was at practice, ask the coach," I pleaded, reaching for his arm, but he flinched away like I was poison. The rain started hammering against the roof, and the wind began to howl, but my father didn't care. He grabbed my backpack, threw it at me, and dragged me toward the front door. "I won't have a thief and a junkie under my roof," he hissed, "go find a new family, because we're done with you." He pushed me out, the wind nearly knocking me over, and the last thing I saw before the door clicked shut was Chloe, standing in the hallway, slowly lowering her tissue and giving me a small, wicked smirk. I was 15, it was 9 p.m. in a thunderstorm, and I had exactly $0 to my name. I walked for 3 miles in that freezing rain, my sneakers squelching in the mud, my body shivering so hard I thought my teeth would shatter. I didn't have a phone, and my grandmother lived 2 towns over. I eventually collapsed under a bus stop shelter, curled into a ball, wishing I could just disappear. Funny thing about luck, sometimes it finds you when you're at your lowest. A woman named Sarah, a night shift nurse, pulled over because she saw a heap of clothes shivering on the bench. She took me to the ER, and that's where the nightmare for Raymond and Chloe truly began. Because I was a minor found in a storm with signs of hypothermia, the hospital had to call Child Protective Services and the police. An officer named Mark sat by my bed, and for the first time in years, someone actually listened to me. I told him about the pills, I told him about Chloe's boyfriend who had a record, and I told him to check the dates on those pill bottles. Here's where Chloe's perfect plan started to rot. The police didn't just take her word for it like my dad did. They went to our house the next morning, and Officer Mark was a veteran. He noticed that the stolen money Chloe found was in sequential bills. He went to the bank, and guess what? He found security footage from that very morning showing Chloe at the ATM, using my father's card while he was at work. Then came the pills. They weren't just random drugs. They were a specific prescription traced back to Chloe's boyfriend, who had reported them stolen only an hour after I was kicked out. It was a sloppy, desperate setup. While I was being warmed up in a hospital bed, my grandmother, Dorothy, arrived. She was a woman who didn't take nonsense from anyone, especially not my father. She walked into the police station and demanded they pull every bank statement from the last 6 months. When the records came back, they showed that nearly $12,000 had been funneled out of my dad's account into a PayPal linked to Chloe. My father sat in the waiting room, his head in his hands, as the reality started to sink in. He hadn't just kicked out a troubled teen, he had thrown his innocent daughter into a life-threatening storm to protect the person who was actually robbing him blind. The fallout was absolute. My grandmother filed for emergency custody, and the judge granted it within 48 hours. When my father tried to come to the hospital to apologize, Dorothy stood at the door like a stone wall and told him if he stepped a foot closer, she'd have him arrested for child endangerment. Chloe didn't get away with a sisterly squabble. Because of the amount she stole and the false police report she helped orchestrate, she was charged with grand theft and filing a false statement. My father, broken and realizing he'd lost everything, refused to bail her out. She ended up serving 18 months, her golden girl reputation trashed forever in our small town. I never went back to that house. I stayed with my grandmother, finished high school as valedictorian, and got a full scholarship to college. I worked 3 jobs, built a career in corporate law, and made sure I would never, ever be at the mercy of someone else's lie again. Fast forward to last month. I got a call from a nursing home. It was Raymond. He's had 2 strokes, his house is gone, sold to pay off the debts Chloe left behind after she got out of prison and stole from him again, and he's alone. Chloe hasn't visited him in 3 years, not since she realized there was no more money to take. I went to see him, just once. He looked so small, so pathetic, sitting in that wheelchair. He started to cry the moment I walked in, begging for forgiveness, telling me he was blinded by Chloe's charm. I just looked at him, and I didn't feel anger, I didn't feel pity. I felt nothing. I forgave you a long time ago, Dad, I said, my voice calm, but that doesn't mean you get to be in my life. You chose a lie over your daughter in a storm, and now, you get to live in the silence you created. I walked out of that room, and for the first time in 15 years, the coldness in my bones finally disappeared. Chloe is working at a gas station 2 towns over, still trying to find her next mark, but everyone knows her name now. As for me? I'm going home to a husband who loves me and a life I built out of the mud and the rain. Justice isn't always a gavel in a courtroom. Sometimes, justice is just living a life so good that the people who tried to break you become nothing but a distant memory.